other properties and his other works, and Steve just sort of talks about, the channel and what he's doing. The show's tagline was, crafted by an uncommon philosophy, where bold ideas are righteous, unique perspectives are gospel, and strong opinions are sacred, with the motto, never follow.
All right. We're back. Let me try this again, fix my settings. So here's what we got. I feel that this is the best description of what's been going on factually in the last few months with the Non Sequitur show that we've talked about here and on Steve's channel and with Team Skeptic with Reds. Steve McRae jumped in the chat and also felt the same way, that this is the best breakdown. So let's just go right into it and hear In Time, which is a YouTube channel you can find in the link in my About section and on Steve's channel. I never knew about this channel. I'm going to kill two birds with one stone, as I said before. One, showing you this excellent breakdown of all the facts, prepared and very well done here. And then two, I'm going to show you a new channel that I really like. I think these guys are good. So let's go ahead and let them speak for themselves. So here they are. The best breakdown of everything that's happened from the beginning of Non Sequitur all the way up to yesterday.
They became known for having a broad variety of guests and discussing a wide range of topics. On one day, they might have on a guest to discuss capital punishment, and the next day, you might find rocket scientists debating with flat earthers. It was an eclectic mix, and they became known both for shows of high intellectual quality and for dumpster fires. Kyle was immensely charming, friendly, warm, and well-liked. Steve was erudite with a legendary level of background knowledge on a wide range of topics. They each brought different qualities to the show, and they worked, but nonetheless worked very well together and played to each other's strengths, which led to a professional quality show. Now, this format was far more successful than either of them had anticipated. And in about a year, they went from obscurity to nearly 20,000 subscribers. Their pinnacle episode was on February 26th, which was an interview with Dr. Lawrence Krauss, which you can see here. And let's see, he is a famous physicist, lecturer, and atheist. The show at this point developed a reputation. This was their breakout show, and they developed a reputation for being able to land the biggest of guests. However, significant problems began developing behind the scenes. Steve had a knack for getting into arguments on Facebook and Twitter and was becoming more and more disliked by prominent members of the very community that Non Sequitur was courting. Prominent atheists like Aaron Raw and Matt Dillahunty were suggesting that they would not come on the show if Steve was going to be there.
And I'm glad that he's explaining this part, because I didn't know anything about this up until the last few days or whatever. If you recall, I was doing a video on the Tom Jump debate where Steve jumps in, the most epic thing that's happened ever. I'm still doing that video, but
he began to get a reputation for being overly pedantic and unwilling to let an argument go, and maybe even be a bit of a troll. What's more, Steve would often openly question many liberal and progressive assumptions.
Once again, I agree to an extent. I think that some people took Steve's side, his opinion, and attacked it because they got mad at him. Not Aaron Raw or them, but I don't know. I have to go watch and find out what happened back then. But anyway, on a show where the literal point is, what they just stated about opinions about, I don't see how you can hold it against Steve, really. It's so crazy. I'm not saying that he said anything wrong, but you get where I'm coming from. Okay.
About society and culture. This led to multiple and repeated charges that he was transphobic, homophobic, misogynistic, and any number of other pejoratives. Kyle felt that he was beginning to spend more and more time defending Steve, both on the show and in social media, and trying to smooth things over to be able to maintain guests. Nonetheless, Steve was still able to book guests, and he was very adept at booking them. And
I think that says a lot about, how serious it was that Steve has opinions. Like, opinions are sacred. You can think what you want, argue it, do your thing. But people got mad at Steve. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not blaming these guys. This is a perfect retelling, but that's what I want to add there.
And the show was still growing and clearly becoming more and more successful. Pardon me. Interested in knowing how much the show was making, Steve began inquiring more and more seriously about the financial records, which he hadn't seen. Kyle finally promised in writing to turn all the financial records over to Steve on April 16th. Now,
as I said before, I'm going to redo it. I didn't know that it was in writing. I knew that he had promised by April 16th. Interesting, right?
Americans will recognize that date as the day after tax day. After the taxes had been filed, Kyle would have his accountant turn all of them over to Steve McCrae. April 16th came and went, and Steve never heard from Kyle. By mid-April and May, the show began undergoing some significant changes. Steve was appearing far less frequently, and a number of the fans felt that the show was beginning to emphasize quantity over quality. More and more shows were being broadcast, but they weren't necessarily being held to the standard that the fans thought that they could expect. Kyle began assuming the responsibility for booking, and guests started complaining that they couldn't reach him, that he wasn't getting back to them, and that the dates were getting either changed or canceled without warning. Patrons also started complaining that they were not having their rewards met. Production also started changing, with unscheduled shows or topics being aired, and the producers, Dave McGinnis and Boole, receiving as little as 15 minutes notice before going live. Often Steve would not even know that these episodes had occurred until after they aired. Publicly, people were asking Steve about these changes, and he would tell them the same thing. It's just a phase, it's nothing to worry about. Privately, Steve began voicing concerns that he still hadn't seen the books.
Of course, as we go through, I'm going to be comparing my prediction here, which I never liked having this opinion, but I think it explains the need for everything that's happened to happen, that maybe the money was spent and, you know, it led to this. So I'll be adding in as we go.
A number of other changes had also been happening behind the scenes. On Sunday, December 23rd, 2017, at 2:25 a.m., Kyle asked Steve to transfer full ownership of the channel from Steve McCrae to Kyle Curtis on the grounds that this would boost the channel's SEO. Now,
okay, I have to interject. That makes no sense whatsoever. To boost the SEO, switching a manager of the channel or something. What now? The only thing I could think is Kyle wants... No, you'd already have all that control. Depending... Like, you can have multiple managers of a YouTube channel. The only thing to boost your SEO is what tags, title, and description, and those types of things. Maybe when you upload. Those types of things could just be handled by them sitting down and talking, too. Very weird. Very strange. Very strange.
SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, and it is how the ranking on Google searches is calculated. The higher your SEO, the more likely you are to appear, and the easier it is for you to get the attention you're looking for.
Of course, if I wanted to spell out what I'm trying to say there, did he really want to do something with the SEO by doing that? No, it's not possible. So why? Well, if you wanted to take the channel from someone, that's how you do it. Make an excuse, take it. They don't know, so they're like, okay. They trust you, so they're like, okay, you get me.
Steve accepted this, and 2 hours and 20 minutes later, informed Kyle that he had...
Steve says, those screenshots you can show here? Oh, awesome, man. Will do. I'll pull them up later, you know, and go through a little bit of them. That's excellent, man. Thank you, dude. Hey, Bullinator, bro. Why don't you have a wrench here, man? Let me give you a moderation. Strange is a word which here means bullshit excuse. Exactly. I added to that, though. I paused it and added to that after. Okay, back to it.
Made the transfer, and the channel was transferred.
Bull, make sure you can type and you have a wrench when you type next. I just want to make sure you got one. Okay, SEO, search engine optimization. So literally the only way you can affect that is your tags, your title, the about section, and yes, you can affect it by when you go live or when you upload. So if I want to be noticed more on the side of YouTube, I make sure that I have maximum SEO, maximum search engine optimization for how I title my video. Now, they always say the rule of threes. YouTube does. That means the tags, the thing that your video is most about, it's going to be search most about. You should have three. You should have it in threes. Your title, your about section, and in your tags. So, you know, if you download vidIQ and use it for your YouTube channel, it actually helps you remember to do these things, helps give you hints, and it helps kind of look at the algorithm as much as it can, and then let you know what you can do to get a better SEO. Actually, some channels are completely built, or some channels never grow specifically on SEO. Does setting managers of channels, who owns channels, who can do things to channels, affect SEO? In no way, shape, or form. Just so everybody knows why that's important.
Steve to Kyle. Now, this was the beginning of a pattern of Kyle systematically acquiring complete control of all of the show's assets over the period of a year.
What I like to call the hostile takeover, in quotes, in very big air quotes. You get my
This
drift.
included Teespring, Patreon, PayPal, and so on. Eventually, and in many cases using the same justifications. On May 27th, Steve and the show's producers, Boole and Dave, had their administrative privileges downgraded, reducing their access to the back end of the show.
Hostile takeover. Okay, sorry, I had to cough.
Steve was reduced to communications manager. Now, Kyle told Steve that
Adverse possession, Merc? Maybe that works. I don't know, but
this was an inadvertent consequence of switching some of the administrative status on the back end on his Google account as they were making changes, and that this was again done for SEO reasons. He also said it would probably take some time to correct and restore.
Yeah.
However,
sometime, it takes 2 seconds. I could go right now and either add Rachel to any of my accounts, take her away from any of my accounts. It reflects instantly. What is he talking about? Not him. Of course, I'm meaning Kyle, okay? In Time is just giving us the timeline, which I love the name of his channel, too. They have a steampunk theme. After we go through this, I'm going to play the intro to their channel. Man, it's so good. These guys are really good. Both of them. I really like them.
once it was discovered that Boole could not produce without having those privileges, he found his privileges immediately restored.
Yep.
At this point, Kyle instructed Boole not to reveal to Steve that his privileges had been restored, and that if Steve asked, Kyle instructed Boole to lie about having his privileges restored. Boole immediately refused, and he notified his co-producer that this had happened. He also kept complete records of the entire conversation.
Didn't that, I think that, I won't, okay, I better not think. I'll let him talk. Okay, sorry.
Now, at this point, Steve began confiding, sorry, hold on one second. Steve continually and repeatedly asked Kyle for a meeting to discuss the financial records and to discuss the reduced account privileges and a growing list of pressing matters. Kyle repeated that having such a meeting was high on his priority list, but that he was extraordinarily busy. Eventually, he cited medical issues as being a prohibitive reason, and
Steve says, I called Kyle out for something being fishy when I didn't have manager and Bull. I remember that, yeah. Well, I remember you saying that before, and it definitely was, in my opinion. I think hearing the sequence of events like this, as In Time did it, not only is such an excellent take and so like very prepared, but both of them are very fair in this, too. Everyone will hear that as it goes, so this really will get people That's one thing that's confused a lot of people. The confusion will go away if they watch this video.
A reason for having the meeting, and he kept putting it off until next week, then the next week, and then the next week. Things came to a head when on June 11th, Red's Rhetoric, a regular on Non Sequitur, who was scheduled to appear on a Flat Earth event. When he was told that Steve wouldn't be there, he refused to go on, saying he would not go live without Steve being present.
Yep.
This led to a confrontation in which Reds, Boole, and Steve confronted Kyle to discuss the entire situation. Kyle indicated that Steve had become a drag on the show and that.
Okay, somebody asked a question that gaming dudes. Okay, Michael D. Let me see what he said. Oh man, I'm trying not to miss questions or anything, but has Uni made a video on the last debate? I'm working on it right now. We'll be actually last night we worked on it for a really long time on D Live. Throwing it together now, snap of a finger. So keep an eye out. It won't be today. No, today though, obviously it's late. I would say tomorrow we can aim for that. Definitely, 90% chance tomorrow we'll get it out.
That he was spending too much. That Kyle himself was spending too much.
And I would say anyone who's interested in that topic, watch what I'm going to put out. Okay? You need to see it. Everybody who's interested in that, you need to see what I'm going to put out. We made some discoveries last night is all I'll say.
Time defending Steve, and that Steve was hardly even working on the show anymore. He said that Steve would be welcome for as many as 4 shows on the week, 4 shows a week, but that there would be a separate time for guests who did not want to be on with him.
He's literally describing the hostile takeover right now. That stream that the Death of the Non Seq show that Reds and Steve put out and that I commentated on here, that is what I call the hostile takeover. But yeah, because it's the events directly before that leads straight to them being locked out of their account. But yeah, you get me.
Kyle also said that while in fact there had been a 50-50 deal for the revenue of the show, he was
Yes, amazing discoveries, Merc. Yes.
ending the deal going forward. From that point forward, Steve would only be entitled to 50% of the revenue for the episodes on which he appeared. Now, this was a unilateral changing of the previous deal. He also suggested that, and later formalized the notion that Steve had never been a co-owner of the show. And in fact, Steve was more akin to a guest host on equal status with others such as Shannon Q, Godless Engineer, Caitlin Chloe, and the newly arrived Katie Paulson.
Isn't that amazing how you can just claim something like that, even though 30,000, 100,000 people all know that that's not the case whatsoever? But Kyle, I mean, okay.
Kyle indicated that he felt he had been doing a disproportionate amount of the work and that he was overwhelmed. He needed a break and he couldn't deal with all of these things. Steve said, fine, you take a break. We will produce the show until you feel ready to come back and we will discuss these matters more. And at that point, Kyle said, no, you won't. And he proceeded to lock Steve out of the show.
Yep.
Feeling he had been left with no recourse, Steve immediately went public with this entire meeting, and he called for friends and members of the Non Seq family to discuss the matter publicly. At this meeting, and in later public forums, multiple co-hosts of the Non Sequitur show reiterated that everything was on the up and up, nothing was wrong, and that this had not been a premeditated plan to remove Steve or anything like that, and he would get the books, and he would get the money as had always been promised to him.
See, and that's my problem when T-Jump did his argument. I'm thinking the sheer fact that it's been the amount of time that it has since promises were made on the books being put out and the money being put out alone states that if we wait any longer, it'll never happen. It's way past that, point of no return, in my opinion. That's why I was so hard on Tom Jump and why I don't like the guy and why I think that he sucks. That's why, just so you know.
After a week, Steve had still failed to hear from Kyle's attorney or his accountant, and he went on a full media offensive. He began writing and streaming regularly about his version of these events. The damage to the Non Sequitur property was catastrophic. In the course of several weeks,
I got to add this in. Kyle's lawyer's right there. I love it, dude. Kyle, is Kyle's lawyer here? I hope he is. I love that guy.
The channel lost roughly 6,000 subscribers, which represents 20% of their total. They lost 2/3 of their patrons. Viewership plummeted to levels below where they had been even a year prior. And many of the views, their viewership dropped, and many of the views that were there were hate views and troll.
Look at those graphs. Look at this graph. So what you're looking at in this graph is this point right here. See it? This is that point where all this happened. Now look at this. Every time they're doing a show, through the roof. And it's constant. Very constant. Look at that one. Really early on. It's one of the biggest. And then look right here. All at the same time, right when this happened, boom, just drops off. It shows the impact so well.
Dislikes today continue to outweigh likes by 3 to 1 or more. As of yesterday, hold on a second. I'm sorry. And they also began on a purge of comments and purged 1,704 comments from their videos since that time.
That's a job.
Their mods, overwhelmed by the vitriol and the trolling in the chat, began blocking anybody or anything with even a whiff of criticism over this topic. The modding became so overbearing that it fed more anger towards the show, and with charges of violating their core values and their motto. And even
I'm so glad he worded it that way, because that's the point that I tried to make from the very beginning, that the core tenet of this show was violated so bad by all of this.
And some of their own mods began rebelling at the heavy hand with which moderation was occurring. On some episodes, negative comments have numbered in the thousands, and a number of the guests that Kyle appeared to be courting and said that he had been seeking and was losing because of having McRae on the show with him said that they would no longer appear. It has been 41 days. Actually, I'm sorry. I knew I had that number wrong. It's been, I think, 72 days since that happened. And while Kyle continues to put out new content, the show is losing an average of 5 subs each and every day. The podcast, which had actually been managed daily by Steve, ground to a halt. And it went from having 2 or 3 shows a week to not producing a single podcast in the last 75 days. The Non Sequitur website, which still displays today and even on yesterday's show prominently on the graphics on the broadcast, the Non Sequitur website is down. It failed on, I believe it was July 1st, and continues to return a 404. And yesterday, the total number of YouTube subs fell below 27,000. I also was recently made aware that it appears that their Facebook page has recently been archived. Ooh. At this point, that was reasonably new information that I just got.
Yeah, me too.
So at this point, the disputes is centered around, principally around one issue: who owns the Non Sequitur show? Both sides agree that there was a 50-50 split. That is not in contention. However, Mr. Curtis argues that 50-50 was only in regards to revenue and only for so long as Steve was associated with the show. He argues that Steve has no ownership stake in the show whatsoever, that the show belongs 100% to Mr. Curtis, and that Steve is essentially an at-will employee who could be fired at any time. Mr. McRae argues that he was an equal.
Now that actually, make sure you understand, there's a lot of evidence that goes against that notion. Of course, that is something being claimed by Kyle, but it doesn't add up. It's like literally ridiculous.
Co-owner of the show, that he invested in it as a property, that
basically, if that was even had the slightest chance of being true, Steve would be the best business partner you could ever have, because he's like, he don't get no money, he don't get nothing, but he does a lot of work.
The deal was that he would have an equal ownership of it, with Mr. Curtis having solely creative control of the show and nothing more. And
that doesn't work like that.
Mr. McRae worked on it full time, even allowing his other properties like the Great Debate Community to atrophy while he was investing in this one.
And it was a pretty big community. I was surprised. Steve had a really big community in the Great Debate Community. It's still doing really good after the fact. So anyway.
But the problem is most accurate.
Why does it no longer show participants? What do you mean participants? Explain, because I don't understand what you mean.
And easily understood as around a single current contention. Both sides agree that at a minimum, Steve is owed 50% of the revenue up through July 11th, which would be ostensibly the date of termination.
Merc, oh my God, bro. Merc. Have you been watching? Did I get you watching that show too, bro? Stop it, Merc. Stop it.
Now, despite agreement on that issue, there seems to be
Funny,
no
though.
progress
Stop.
in regards to seeing the
funny.
books, to seeing any of that money. There has been no progress whatsoever. In a private Patreon hangout, Kyle addressed these issues for the patrons. He expressed a desire to regain trust in the community and told the patrons that if they felt there was an issue of trust, they should withdraw their support until such time that he could regain that trust, and he expressed an eagerness to do so. He reiterated an affection for Steve and said that this decision was his and his alone, and that Steve would get every penny that was owed him, which was 50% up through the date of termination. He said that he would leave this for the lawyers to sort out, that he had a lawyer, he had an accountant, that they would in fact be in touch with Steve and get it all sorted out.
So that happened on Patreon. Okay, see, hearing all of this really helps, you know, go through each step of it. Yeah.
And Steve would receive his share of the profits, which were being held in escrow for him. Now, in most states, if you're entitled to a percentage of the profits of a business, you are entitled to see the books. That is a right. It cannot be denied to you for any reason. Let me say again, it cannot be denied to you for any reason. It doesn't matter. If you are if you are in prison for having committed fraud, you're still entitled to see the books. It doesn't matter. They cannot be withheld for any reason. And we will be discussing that and a couple other points I've hit on in a little bit. However, both Kyle and multiple co-hosts of the show promised that the books would be forthcoming to Steve in short order, and the money. And Kyle himself set several deadlines as to when he would turn over the books, and he ignored and missed most of them, often without a word or explaining why. On Friday, July 5th, he told Steve that Steve could expect the books on Monday, July 8th. Monday came and went, and no one heard from Kyle. It wasn't until...
Now remember, we're in today's date for the replay is the 22nd of August, just so everybody knows.
Kyle live streamed on Friday the 12th that he explained that, well, he probably shouldn't have made that promise without consulting his attorney. His attorney said it would take a few days, and that's why he missed the deadline.
This is a really bad attorney. Is Kyle's lawyer in the chat? Kyle's lawyer, you're really not, you don't know what you're doing, bro. That's some malpractice there, dude. My dude. I'm just playing, by the way. But I'm serious.
He also said that the lawyer had a few concerns, and that until the lawyer could settle these concerns and make sure that no fraud had been committed on Steve's part, he probably would not be handing over the money. Now, again, even if there had been fraud, the books are legally required to be turned over.
Exactly, and that's what shows the true... I don't know what word, whether you'd say... whether honesty or whatever it would be of the people that are defending Kyle, like T-Jump. You know, it's like, for one, nobody would be okay if they were in the if they put themselves in the other situation, right? They would act completely different. But they're defending Kyle on that so heavily with no logical basis. There's just nothing there that you can say makes sense on that.
As is the money. We'll be getting into that also as well. Now, the claim here was that Steve may have been trying to defraud Medi-Cal and or at one point his taxes. The reference appears to be, this appears to be referring to a March 26th request made by Steve to withhold his earnings from the Non Sequitur show so as to not push his income above the qualifying mark for Medi-Cal.
And anyway, Steve has the option to do that if he wants and go out and check. I've said this the whole time too, so I just want to make sure I interject it. He can say, hey, hold up, let me go check everything. Let me make sure all my affairs are in order before this happens. There's nothing illegal or wrong or bad about any of that. For all we know, he could just come back and say, okay, pay me on this date. I've got my stuff set up for this way. And it really shouldn't be anyone's business to why. That he decides, hey, don't pay me today, pay me in 3 weeks. You know, let me make sure I got everything good. People do that constantly. There's literally nothing illegal or nefarious about that. But I'll be damned if they didn't try to make it that way.
Now, this was a short-lived request. He eventually went over that mark anyway, and he returned to saying he would like the distributions as soon as possible, with the caveat that he also...
Ooh, okay. A little internet hiccup there. I'm saying that because there's this little screenshot you're going to see in a little bit that's Godless Engineers saying something about bloody because Steve committed a crime. It'll pop up here in a second, and we'll look at it here also after they talk. Though you can see the narrative, right? You can see that narrative being out there, even though there's no basis for it. There's no good argument for it. There's no proof of it. They literally are grasping at straws with it. And I think that the one thing that will kind of echo out after the situation is how many people tried to cling to those straws to make a point while their channel is based on, you know, whatever it may be, from debunking a flat earther to talking about religion, whatever, debating something. You have to go back and say to yourself, like, well, just 3 weeks ago, you were die hard on this point about, you know, that Steve may have done this so he didn't get paid. The most illogical flat... You could even say that you could respect flat earthers more because they're just believing this. It's their belief about the shape of the world compared to, you know, Godless Engineer or T-Jump or somebody else trying to say Steve committed a crime so he doesn't get a paycheck. You get me? It's so nuts.
This has been...
Steve didn't, by the way.
...spun in...
No proof of it. Making sure that's out there.
...into two narratives. The first narrative is that Kyle attempted to give Steve the money time and time again, and Steve repeatedly said no. The second narrative is that Steve was attempting to engage in some form of fraud, and therefore Kyle cannot let him see the books or get the money, or Kyle might be somehow implicated in that fraud, or his lawyer might somehow be implicated in that fraud. Both claims he has made publicly.
Which are insane. I'd love to hear what he thinks about this, because I can't find a good reason to even go there.
The problem with the first claim is that it was only a very brief period of time in which Steve asked Kyle to hold on to the money, and that was about a year ago.
If you go to look, imagine it like this. If you go to your employer and you say, oh my God, I get paid on Friday. I can't let that check go into my account because I need time for this, and this. There's literally, they'll just bring you out a paper check, or they'll do whatever. They'll hold it for you, whatever you want them to do. I don't even think they'll give a shit. They're not going to say why. Oh, because of Medicare. Some possible thing there. Now you don't get your check for a year and a half while we try to decide whether or not you did something illegal. That's their argument. It's batshit crazy. It's that crazy.
Over the period of 18 months, Steve has continued.
Another thing, I'm sorry, I should have said this. Why in the world are debunkers and smart people and debaters and people that talk about, you know, smart content, why are they clinging on to that and not bothering to explain it in any way, shape, or form? They can't. They always go there, and that's all you've ever heard from any of them. T-Jump or Godless Engineer or any of them. They stop right there. It's just, well, Steve could have committed a crime. Yeah, but how does that affect getting paid? Nothing. They never go further. That's always their point. And I have to revert back. How does so many people come to this illogical point without it maybe being that they're talking to someone that's feeding them that? That's the only plausible thing I can come to.
Been asking for the money in the books, and he hasn't seen a thing. Nothing. The second problem is that there is absolutely no fraud attempted here. First of all, Steve's benefits are all covered by the...
Now, he's going to explain it, and I'm going to let him, even though I think that it's not something that should be publicly accounted for. It's insanity. You know, if Steve, either way, whatever, if he was going, even if he's committing the crime, he doesn't have to tell the people, and it shouldn't matter to the check. But let's just say we know Steve wasn't. They haven't produced any evidence or any type of thing to even suggest he is either. You see what I'm saying? So crazy.
VA. These are
Let him
benefits that
explain
he
it.
has earned as a veteran. They cannot be revoked. He also qualified for Medi-Cal. There is no difference in the services that he was using between the Medi-Cal and the VA. The VA provided all the same services and at the same level. However, the VA hospital was 4 hours away, and the Medi-Cal hospital was only 30 minutes away. Quite an improvement, especially considering Steve did not have a car at the time. Steve wanted to maintain his Medi-Cal so that he would not have to transfer hospitals. He was already getting ready for a surgery. He was preparing to have it at the closer hospital.
And this is not illegal, by the way.
And if he lost his Medi-Cal, he would have to start over and repeat everything at a hospital 4 hours away, and he did not wish to do that.
I wouldn't either.
That is not, he at no time got any extra services he was not entitled to, nor was he seeking those services. He was trying to prevent a change of venue. Further, it could potentially be argued that even trying just for that change of venue,
it's not, though,
would be illegal if you're withholding income, and certainly illegal if you're not reporting it. However, this was not income. Steve was not an employee in the company. He was he plausibly considered himself a co-owner in the business. Now, when you own a business, any money that the business generates is not revenue until you pull it out, and you can pull it out at any time. Whenever you want to, you can pull it out. It's yours to do with as you wish. Many people keep it in the company and reinvest it time over time for however long they like. But Steve was under no obligation to have that money pulled out at any time. Steve and Kyle, it would be up to Steve and Kyle to determine who gets paid out and at what schedule using any metric they choose. That revenue is not income until Steve pulled it out, and Steve is not required to pull it out or take it at any time he wants. This is because he was an owner. If he was an at-will employee, that would change things, but at a minimum, Steve certainly believed that he was a co-owner and therefore had the right to defer payment months, weeks, months, years if he wanted to, even reinvest it in the show or never take the payments. That's what happens when you own a business. So it was easily well within his prerogative to ask for and to get those deferments, and there isn't any lawyer or accountant who does not recognize that. What's more, even if any of this had been criminal, it does not empower Kyle to withhold either the money to which he's entitled or the books. Does not empower Kyle. And
I got to make a point here. So if so many of those same people are going to, because of a possible crime that they have no evidence that Steve's committing, but think that it's possible that he could have, if they want to make that into an issue, why are they not making the books an issue? You get where I'm going there. It shows the sided nature of the entire thing, which is why I stepped in. You get me?
We're going to be discussing that one in a little bit as well.
I think it really goes to show that point.
Well, in the hopes of avoiding a legal battle, Steve retained an attorney. The attorney was not licensed to practice law in North Carolina. However, Steve gave him power of attorney so that he could act and negotiate unencumbered on Steve's behalf. Now, of course, he could not file legal documents. He would not be able to operate as an officer of the court, but he had considerable legal experience and could operate in Steve's stead. The power of attorney tried repeatedly to get in touch with Kyle, to try to learn the name of Kyle's lawyer so they could begin negotiations and try to solve this problem. Tried to find out why the books were being withheld and some legitimate legal reason for withholding them. At every turn, the attorney was rebuffed and was either completely ignored or just told, well, you'll get them at some point, and there was no answer. This prompted Steve to retain a law firm in North Carolina, which is where which is the state that has district in this issue. They issued a demand letter in which Kyle was instructed to stop streaming, to protect the show's assets, and to return the channel to its original owner, who was Steve. And
wow, that's crazy.
Most importantly, finally, show Steve the books. The letter was immediately rebuffed. Upon receiving it, Kyle posted his reply, not by lawyer or even by email, but in the comments section of the Non Sequitur show, saying
that's literally nutty. Here it is. It's crazy.
He would not comply with the letter. Seeing as this is not a legally binding reply, they waited for the obligatory 7 days they had given him, and Kyle's lawyer or legal representation failed to respond in any legal manner to Steve's lawyer. Steve has decided
I keep thinking of Kyle's lawyer in the comments and Twitter. It's funny.
He's going to go on to the next step. He has announced over a couple of streams on his channel that he has drafted a 12-page long complaint with 7 different charges. It has been notarized and it is being prepared to be filed in a North Carolina court. How and when it's going to be filed is difficult to predict. It's probably going to be soon, but the fact that they're taking this long and doing it means it's probably a pretty serious document. In general, when overtures are ignored and trying to say, look, let's just deal with this staying out of court, if that gets ignored, it's been my experience, the next step is a drastic escalation. And the fact that it's taking this long to draft it, but it's already been notarized and clearly there's a plan, suggests to me that that's what we're going to see. As soon as that document becomes available, we will publish it here and we will discuss it. And all of the videos which I have referenced here, which have been, I think, 6 or 7, we will link to in the description so that you can see for yourself what it is we're talking about, and where we have timestamps, we will provide them for you. But this leads to sort of the final question, which is, why is this even a big deal? It's just a small YouTube channel. Here's the thing. Given the dramatic success of the Non Sequitur show and its related properties, there seems to be a great deal of money involved. Now, while Kyle has refused to turn over any of the books to anyone that we can verify, some of the books have been glimpsed, at least some of the records for individual months, especially in the last days before the breakup. Those records seem to indicate that between the super chats, advertising, and monthly income on YouTube alone, the show was bringing in thousands of dollars a month. While nobody has seen the Patreon numbers, everyone who joins Patreon gets elevated in the Discord. So you can go through the Discord and tally up all of the patrons based on the level that they have in the Discord and get a pretty good idea for how much money is being made monthly on by patrons. This was done the month after well, not the month after, shortly, a couple weeks after July 11th, June 11th, my apologies. And it was estimated that the patron was probably bringing in about $1,800 to $2,000 a month. The show also has a PayPal account, a Teespring account, an album, and iTunes, and the revenue from all of those is completely hidden. Nobody has any idea how much is coming in. It was recently discovered that the show even has an Amazon wish list.
This is definitely new information to me, so I don't think anybody knew about this. No one's talked about this, at least.
This list contains a number of high-end items. Steve was not even aware of this list until recently and has discovered that a number of people have donated to it. Nobody can account for where any of the items on these donations have gone, where they are, or how many donations have been made, prompting Steve to ask those who have donated to get in contact with him so that he can try to understand exactly how much has gone to the show behind his back. Jammy Sixlow donated $1,200 vMix software to Boolinator himself. Now, this was donated to the producer, not to the show. It was donated to Bool so that he could expand his career and produce multiple shows, because he, at the time, also was not making any income whatsoever for his work on the Non Sequitur show. The only person to have made a dime so far in the nearly 18-month history of the show is Kyle. This was donated to Boole, 2 seats on vMix, despite the fact that Boole is named as the recipient on the donation. Both seat licenses remain in the hands of the Non Sequitur show today.
It's so dumb. Like, why can't Boole at least have that if the dude bought it for Boole? And that's expensive, dude.
Any attempt by Steve or his power of attorney or his lawyer to get elucidation on any of these matters, any at all, has been completely ignored. Repeated deadlines for progress on any of these matters, set by Kyle himself in many cases, has also been ignored. Kyle has repeatedly guaranteed that Steve will get all of his money and that everything will be sorted out, but it has been 71 days since he publicly promised to show Steve the books, and it's been 127 days since his first written promise to hand over the books on April 16th, 2019. In the 18-month history of the show, with all of that money, thousands of dollars pouring in donations, sales, ad revenue, the only person to see any of the income is Kyle. The only person to have seen any of the books that we can verify is Kyle.
So could I make my point again that I made the first day, which is there's only a few reasons for all of this craziness that literally explains everything that happened. If the money was gone, you'd have to do all these crazy things to buy yourself more time and not admit to it or let it come out, or, you know what I'm saying? I know some people don't like that I say that, but I am convinced of it at this point.
In the 128 days since Kyle first promised the book, Steve has received no money, has received no contact from any attorney regarding this issue, has not received contact from any CPA or accountant regarding this issue. There hasn't been, in the 127 days since this started, there hasn't been a single overture or any progress whatsoever in accomplishing even the most basic goals on which both sides agree. Instead, in the 127 days from that first written promise of the books and the request for information and attorneys, a request for information from attorneys and lawyers, Kyle has given but a single response: trust me. And that's it.
That's a lot to take in.
Yes, it is.
Okay, you know, I actually want to start by asking something because I want to try and give as much credit to Kyle as possible here. Mm-hmm. Even if, let's say, even if we're talking about, you were talking about the income and how it he doesn't have to take it out at any time because, of course, you can reinvest in the business and that's not technically income, right? Because you're an owner of the show. However, for Medi-Cal, wouldn't they consider the value? Not that he knew the value of the show because he hadn't seen the books, but wouldn't the value of the show technically potentially disqualify him from Medi-Cal benefits?
That's an interesting point, and actually, I wanted to bring up one other. Yeah, so the show, the value of the show, and I failed to mention this. The day before this happened, which would be the 10th of June, the value of the show, the Google valued the show as being.
There's such thing as a Google value, or is it only if you have a Google business account or something? Like, how do you see that?
Worth $98,000.
Oh, woo-wee.
That.
Sorry, I don't know where that woo-wee came from, but it was that's a definite woo-wee.
Was the value of the show. So that's just the value of it. That's not even what it was making. That's the value of the show. So ostensibly, Steve had half of that value. The reason that doesn't count is because it's the same thing as when you own shares.
That's a house and a car.
Shares in a company or anything like that, the shares can plummet. The value can change.
Yeah, it doesn't equate to actual cash. It equates to what they consider. Okay, yeah.
The show can get destroyed. In fact, the value of Non Sequitur has plummeted, and last I saw was around $31,000.
That's crazy that it's still $31,000.
So the value of the show lost, last I saw, 2/3 of its value.
I wonder what my show is worth, like 200. I'm stupid.
Value.
I'm so stupid.
You can't tax him on something that, or hold him accountable for something he hasn't withdrawn yet for that very reason. Anything could happen. Okay. And if, let's say, let's say the show makes $2,000, and 1,000 would then be Steve's, 1,000 would then be Kyle's. Now, until Steve pulls that out, that money's just there. If they reinvest that in the show, that's not yet income that he has to report because that's going towards the show. And if the show somehow tanks and all the value gets wiped out, he's lost that money. So it's not income and it's not reportable and it doesn't count until he pulls it out. But there is an interesting thing about this, which is, and we have a slide about the production values because I found this interesting.
This is crazy. I've seen this part. It's crazy, okay? Get ready for this part. Let me zoom in for it. Okay, here it goes.
Okay. If we could bring up the first slide about the production values of the show from about a year ago. That's the show about 1 year ago. And now, and then we also have we should have, before we pull up the next value slide, but I want people to take a look at that. That's the show from a year ago.
So here's Kyle's broadcasting space. Kind of like, this is my, let me show you my broadcasting space, okay? Here it is, ready? There you go. There it is. All right. So there's my broadcasting space. There's Kyle's broadcasting space. You can see it here. Okay.
Now, do we have the slide on Steve about Kyle taking $2,000 from the Patreon?
I don't see. Oh yes, the money gone slide. Yes, I have that. You want me to bring that up?
Yeah. Why don't we bring that up? So, shortly at this time, shortly around this. Oh no, actually, I'm sorry. That's a different one. That's where. So I think there's been some speculation that the money has all been spent, and I think that's worth getting into whether or not the money's been spent or whether or not he even has a lawyer. But no. So I think that's it. So.
Let me just go ahead and read this because I'm interested. I'm very interested at what this says. So this is Steve McRae on Twitter. Kyle was broke in caps. Let me go ahead and put my ugly ass up here. Kyle was broke last year. He spent the Patreon for rent because he got laid off, let go. So all of a sudden, he has to spend $2,000 a show for money to be gone. He's already admitted to me, others have seen it, that he spent Patreon. The AdSense was to be reserved for Steve. So how does Kyle go from broke to spending the Patreon to now having to spend $2,000 a show for the money, at least my share? What? $30,000 minimum to be gone? The math simply does not add up. Okay, that's what the slide says.
Kyle told Steve that he had withdrawn $2,000 from the Patreon to pay for his own rent.
Yes, now, that's what it is. This is the right perfect. Slide. Yes.
That's a problem for a couple of reasons. If you think about this for a minute, there's only one reason to tell Steve that he's done this, and that's because he's withdrawing from Steve's portion. Right. If he was withdrawing from his own portion, he doesn't need to tell Steve. He just takes his own portion, and there you go. The reason you tell Steve is because you've withdrawn part of Steve's portion.
Well, now, the only other reason...
That's a good point.
...is if you're pooling resources, and if anyone takes any money out of the business account or whatever that you are telling the other person. So if that's to me would be like a tacit admission of this is you partially own this.
Yeah, there's evidence. That's evidence to the fact that Steve owns the part that he owns, 50-50, which we already have verbal admission of from both of them. So
I think that's another good point. I think that's a very good point. And
so if you just got here, this podcast that we're looking at is called In Time. The link is in the About section and also on Steve's channel, this video, the link's down here. And I really like this podcast. I just found it today. And I thought we could go ahead and hear what they have to say and also get the best breakdown that I've ever heard from literally start to finish of this whole drama. So if I was to rank everybody's breakdown and the ease of hearing it and how effective it is so that you get the full picture, I think that they've done the best job, but I'll let them continue so you can make up your own mind. But I do suggest you at least check out their channel. It seems pretty cool.
I think it's clear if you look at the production values, which we're about to see the other slide on the production values. In fact, you could bring that up, the second slide, which is the current production values. Okay, that's the show. That's a recent show. Now, if you look at the change in production value.
They're about to change it. So take a look. Okay, you've all seen it. We all know.
That money has to be coming from somewhere. Kyle was unable to pay his own rent not that long ago. He had to tap these funds to pay the rent, and now that's the production values of the show. That money has to be coming from somewhere. Now, if he's taking just his percentage and paying for all of this on his percentage, that's fine. That's his prerogative. But he can't do that from Steve's percentage. And
if he did do that from Steve's percentage, how would he behave then when he's pressured and put into a corner about sharing the books and giving Steve the money that's not there? How would he... now you see why I said that at the beginning of this.
Here's the interesting thing. If I've heard it argued that, well, hey, you know, it's their show, so he can put the money and reinvest it in the show. That's not Kyle's narrative. Kyle's narrative is it's his own show. So again...
And one more time. So let's say that they were to upgrade the show. Did you notice that when this all popped off, Steve had a headset that was taped together, okay? I don't even know what kind of PC that he was using, but his headset was taped together. I used to have to tape a headset together at one point in the past, right? We've all been there. My point is, though, when you spend money to upgrade the show, you want both hosts to have their stuff upgraded. PCs, monitors, outfits, whatever it may be. Now, I don't worry about my outfit. Anything I'm wearing, I just sit down and wear it. Maybe I should change that in the future. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't. I'm not like that. But I could see how somebody would want to if they're getting on a show in front of a bunch of people, right?
Let's say
I'm a weird guy.
$2,000 is made.
I'm a weird dude.
Kyle can do whatever he wants with that with 1,000 of it, but the other 1,000 belongs to Steve. Now, if Kyle says, "Well, I want to do really good graphics and good music. I want to improve the quality of my suits, whatever it is," and he wants to, and that is not a $14 sports coat. I will stand by that. It may not be $400, but
if it is, I want to know where it came from.
$14. I will stand by that comment. But
that entire scene looks. I mean, I can't say for sure how much.
Don't worry, Merc. As soon as it starts getting cold in the fall, I'll have my gloves back. Okay? For 3 years, the only time I don't have my gloves on is when it's hot outside. So
that entire scene looks pretty damn expensive to me. Like you had to go out and buy lighting. You had to go out and buy special appliques for the wall. You had to buy an extra monitor. I mean, that is not a cheap setup.
No. And they've got quality music, quality introduction. I mean, it's a spectacular. I mean, by the way, it's spectacular. I love it.
I'll say this: there's been times that my show has had quality music, quality graphics, all done in After Effects. I did them myself. But if you were to pay somebody, or if you yourself wanted to pay to learn how to do it, it would cost a lot of cash. You get me? So you either know what you're doing on a computer and can teach yourself how to do all this stuff, and get frustrated and remember that time I took 3 weeks break from live streaming to learn After Effects and Adobe Premiere better, and now I use Adobe Premiere for all my edited videos instead of Sony Vegas. It takes time. It would have taken me like 6 months if I wasn't versed in computers, if I didn't know a little bit about everything before I started. So let's imagine you don't know anything and you go in to do this kind of thing. Yeah, it takes a lot of training. It really does.
Beautiful show.
It's great. But that doesn't come cheap, and the software to do these things. I know Kyle's doing most of it himself, and he's clearly talented, by the way. But it doesn't come cheap.
It doesn't come cheap unless you know how to patch. That's why I've always said my show is duct tape and crayons. Okay, this show is held together by duct tape and crayons. And that's not a joke. Every piece of software, everything I use for it, it is highly edited and specialized for this. Yeah, because I don't pay the money for the software. I do it myself.
And so, where is that money coming from if he couldn't pay his own rent?
By the way, if you yourself do a show and you want to learn how I do my show that matches the quality, of course you have to do your graphics and everything, but my show matches the quality of other shows that people pay like $1,200 for VCast or whatever it's called, and they pay this much money for this, and I'll teach you how to do it like a poor person. If you want to know, you can check out my tutorials, and I'm working on a new series of tutorials too. So keep an eye out for that if you want to learn how I do it.
And had to tap these funds to pay.
Because it's free. My way is free. Out of necessity, of course.
His own rent. Now, I've heard it argued that, well, hey, he could just take that $2,000 that we were talking about, this hypothetical show makes $2,000, and reinvest it in the show. Well, first of all, if Steve was a partial owner, that's arguably doable as long as they have an agreement that he's allowed to do that, because that reinvestment stays with Steve, because Steve still owns a part of the show.
Right.
If Steve does not own a part of the show, if he is in fact an at-will employee, then what happens is $1,000 is his money, and Kyle says, oh, I'm going to take it and invest it in my property, which I get to keep and boot Steve from later.
No.
That obviously he cannot do.
Right.
So at a minimum, there must be 50% of all the revenue, which at this point seems to be a pretty staggering number. I'm not going to hesitate.
100,000. Okay,
I'm
sorry.
not going to hazard
150,000.
I think a number of people have. I have given some numbers out already, but that was sort of at the end of the show. I haven't graduated.
Nate says, Uni, your graphics are on point. Your Discord tip was on point too. You like that, Nate? Isn't that awesome? How you can shrink, like, those two sides are so dumb, and shrinking them down makes Discord basically so much better. Don't worry, bro. I got a million different pointers coming out soon, dude. I've been working on it, getting them together. We can work on that together, says Gaming Dude. Or this old mofo. That's true, my dude. We will. 100%, buddy.
The scale for how quickly they've grown, but it's a big number. That's why this is important. And if he can spend his own money any way he likes, including putting it into the show, but none of Steve's can be put in that way without Steve's consent if Steve was a partial owner, and even more so if Steve wasn't. So, and I think I think you take a look at this, and I get worried about where a lot of people have been asking, is the money still there?
And that's been my point the whole time. Imagine that we didn't have the death of Non Seq. I know I say it every time we look at this topic, but just imagine. Because it happens, guys. It happens on YouTube constantly where people don't have a video to show that somebody is bold-faced lying about something. The only reason, I'm going to tell you this right now. Ask yourself this question. If that video didn't exist where Kyle is literally recorded saying 50-50, money is split 50-50 up until the day that Steve is kicked. If they didn't have that recorded, do you think that would be admitted by all the people that defend Kyle? No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be admitted by Kyle or his defenders. They would say, no, he never said 50-50 up until the point he was kicked. I never agreed to that. He would act like he didn't agree to it. That's the kind of thing that really sucks about these situations. That video saved Steve's ass, and I'll never stop saying that when we pull up these videos.
Because that is irrefutably a huge change in production values, especially for, I mean, you saw the first one, he was in kind of a sweatshirt. And
I can bring that one back up real quick, too.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
I mean, look at that.
He brings up a picture of my show. I'm just kidding. It's a joke, damn it.
That is a...
There's UNIRock show. That's what it used to look like on Non Seq. And then now, and he shows the regular Non Seq show.
Phenomenal change. I mean, his setup looks like what I've got going right now, just a random room and just me sitting in it, you know.
His buddy's like, ha.
So yeah, that's
funny,
dude. That's a steep climb in production value. I mean, this honestly looks like some swanky bar in LA.
And I mean it. If you do a show or a podcast or anything and you need to figure out how to have a higher production value for free, hit me up. Tell me what you want to do, what part of it you want me to cover in a video, and I will make you a tutorial and put it up. I have a lot of people that have been asking me stuff, and I've been working the tutorials. So topics for tutorials would really help me in the next month. So send them in if you got them.
You know, this looks like some place that my buddy Tim would go and spend, $30 per cocktail.
So true, bro.
Well, hold on a sec. So,
could you imagine, like, Kyle's the bartender and like, give me a margarita, buddy?
yeah,
That'll be $40, but the suits are $17.
Well, no, I think, and that's,
Sorry.
and I had speculated that his suits were $400. That was an off-the-cuff speculation I made on Twitter. Sometimes on Twitter you're going
I wonder
rapidly,
where that came from.
but I stand by my assertion that the production values have changed dramatically. And I think Kyle, if I recall, I don't want to put words in his mouth, had defended that no, the sports coat itself was only about $14. I apologize. I do not buy that. And here's the other argument: if that sports coat is $14, why is he buying it now at $14 instead of a year ago?
And why can't I?
If this production
I
value
wouldn't
could
buy
have
it
been done
anyway.
a year ago, why was
I'm sure I'd look good wearing it, but I wouldn't buy it anyway, so it doesn't matter.
it?
And if he can
I'd buy that sucker and resell it for $100 and still find somebody to buy it.
get a sports coat like that for $14,
That's the way I
wanna
think.
know where.
I know.
What are you doing?
Well, and they all fit, by the way. This doesn't look, they fit well.
Yeah.
They look like they've been tailored to fit him.
Mhm.
And please, someone
this
tell me that
part.
he's not wearing different, at least sports coats in each one.
Hate to break the news to you.
And that that they're good and quality, and it's a quality show, but that costs money, and I think a lot of people can ask how and why, especially since, and there's one way, by the way, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
There is one way to end all the speculation about
Yes.
this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Can you guess what that might be?
The books.
No.
The books.
Show the books.
The books.
Oh, that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And all
books.
this is done.
But
The
would
Bears.
he even put something like his suits on the books? I mean, he should if it's costuming for the show.
Well, I think the assumption is that at a point he said to himself, Steve doesn't give a shit about the money, and if he complains, I'll take the channel. So that's the assumption.
But I don't know
Well,
that he even would.
I don't think he needs to. The attorney had said earlier, listen, we don't need an itemized. They don't need an itemized. They need a bottom line. This is what the show made. YouTube provides that for every year. They provide the financials that end up going to taxes anyway. This is what the show made, and then just evidence that there is an account that has that much money. You don't need to itemize it, but the law entitles him to this. Even if he had committed fraud, he's entitled to it.
I'd want an itemized list because I'd want to know, because the reason why I would want an itemized list is because I would want to see, make absolutely sure that the money hadn't basically just vaporized. You know what I mean? Like I would be, especially in Steve's position, I'd be willing to accept that a certain amount of the profits get rolled back into the business to improve the business, and the cost of that can be split both ways. You know, so I would want that itemized list because I'd want to be able to go, okay, I agree. This was a wise investment into the business. This was a wise investment into the business. Let's go ahead and split the cost of that, split the difference, you know? So I think Steve is actually being pretty chill when he's just saying, give me the books. I don't need all the little details, you know? I'd want them. I'd be like, no, I want to know if you bought a new ballpoint pen on company money.
Well, and I think
No
that's
shit,
fair.
man,
Here's the other interesting thing, and this is where Kyle may be in a bit of a bind. This is an interesting thing, but I want to discuss two things. So first of all, he has repeatedly said that his lawyer says I can't turn over the books because that might implicate me in a.
Right.
Here's one of the things, and I challenge this. If there are any lawyers, I did this in the last stream. We got 2 lawyers in the last stream that replied. I have done this now, I think, in 4 or 5 streams total, and I've spoken with lawyers. And we reached out to a couple lawyers to have them on the show. We weren't able to. We're still going to try to do that, to actually discuss what the law would say in Kyle's position and what a lawyer would do. The first thing is, we showed how much this show was hemorrhaging the subs, money, all of that stuff. And a good lawyer would have, in the first 24 hours, 48 hours tops, gone to Steve and said, listen, why don't you keep your mouth shut? Stop causing trouble. Stop causing subs, because you're damaging a property that you want to pay out from. Yeah. So stop doing that, and let's talk. I can't get you the books right now. We got some questions, but we'll get it sorted out. But keep your mouth shut. And that.
Well, and I think that was a possibility until that Death of the Non Sequitur Show stream. You know, anybody would have panicked their ass off. Like, he literally was saying, hey, it's 50-50, isn't it? In perpetuity, because that's what I've agreed to this whole time. And Kyle saying, no, I'm changing it. And it's recorded. So that's the panic point. That's where it's like, now, if I don't say anything, this will go on. And all those shows that I participated in are going to keep bringing in ad revenue. And they're going to keep getting money, keep getting clicks. They're going to keep going up because they are in the algorithm. They get recommended to me still. And I don't even, you know, I watch Steve's show and stuff. I don't watch Non Seq too much now. I'll click it sometimes, so that might be why. But, you know, that's basically giving away all future ad revenue from everything before Steve left. You know, if he lets Kyle push him out, there's nothing else he gets after that, if he gets anything, as the argument is now. So it's really dumb to think that Steve would just say, okay, you know, you're right. Even that small thing, like, I don't want that $100 or $200 a month from the revenue of all the shows I participated in for the next couple of years. I don't want that. Why would anybody say that? It's crazy.
That would
AT2 says Kyle keeping his mouth shut and sitting on his hands until this was resolved would have been the wise thing. Very true, my friend. Yeah, definitely. But I think that we all know, if anyone out there who still hasn't seen it, and if you're watching this show, there's really no way you haven't seen it. The Death of the Non Sequitur Show. You could type it into YouTube and watch it. And it's the thing that made all these creators stand up behind Steve, because they're like, holy shit, a 50-50 show just had one of the members look at the other guy and say, it doesn't matter what you say. I have the password and you're gone. And we all in our heads said, what if someone did that to us? And we all stood up, you know? I think this story is pretty relevant in the history of YouTube, you know? I think it will be.
probably have worked. And any lawyer would have said, let's do that and stop the damage. This lawyer that Kyle has been completely silent and has been giving advice. And in my mind, that's, by the way, that's that is, if your lawyer just let this happen and didn't advise and didn't reach out to the opposing side and engage them, I mean, that's grounds for disbarment. I mean, it is that level of negligence on the lawyer's side. Not to mention the fact that, I put out 2 challenges to every live chat. I put it out to this live chat here. If there is any lawyer, with the exception of, I see we have Kyle's lawyer is in the Twitter account. Kyle's lawyer is in the feed.
Hey, that guy seems like he knows what he's talking about.
He does.
He does seem like he knows what he's talking about, which is why I'm not sure he's Kyle's lawyer. But at any rate,
that was one of the first things that really struck me is that any lawyer, their first, in a situation like this, their first priority is going to be to protect the property and the of their client. And one of the first things that has to happen is to, patch the damage, to stem the hemorrhage of subs, to stem the hemorrhage of patrons and things like that. And so the idea that the lawyer hasn't come forward to do everything possible to maintain the brand, to maintain the property, to fix that just seems so strange to me.
And then when Kyle was hit with a legal document saying,
right,
we are making these demands of you, he replied on an open comment.
That is so weird.
There is no lawyer on the planet that would have accepted that. And then he says that his lawyer is telling him that if he complies with sending the books, he is somehow liable. Now, I have taken the worst claims against McRae ever in all of this, and I've run it through 2 criminal lawyers, 1 lawyer who worked as an accountant at a business firm, and they have all said there is no legal precedent for that defense in any way whatsoever. And I have challenged in every live chat, 1, is there a set of circumstances where you as a lawyer representing Kyle would keep your mouth shut and not engage, and where that would not be considered negligence isn't the word. What's it? Not misconduct. What's the legal malpractice for failing to engage? And then one lawyer did point out, well, if he was so instructed by Kyle, but Kyle would have to be paying him a lot of money actually to just sit down on standby and shut up. And any lawyer would be sitting there going, why aren't we talking instead of letting this air and destroy the property? The property is being destroyed. It is being destroyed because Kyle will not take even the most single step forward to fix the problem. And what he does is he sits there and says, well, you know, Steve is going public and all this other stuff. Steve would stop if a lawyer came and said, and here's the thing, a lawyer is an officer of the court. So if a lawyer says, the money is there, we're sorting this out, please wait. He cannot lie about that. So if an officer of the court says that, Steve would be at least satisfied that the money's there. Right now, nobody knows anything.
Yeah, and that'd be very unnerving on Steve's side. And if Kyle was in the opposite position, it would be unnerving for Kyle at that point. You know, just being fair.
Didn't even talk to the CPA, which was promised 127 days ago.
And it's interesting how many people in Kyle's circle have come forward and made guarantees they couldn't possibly, you know, make. And
these are all great points. That's why I wanted you guys to see this. Every single point is so good. It is interesting to see that. I have some theories for why they're doing that, you know, because the last group of people in any YouTube community to leave are the really dedicated ones. And yes, they do have a propensity, depending on how the YouTuber acts and if he allows it or not, to get very sided for that person. And you see that here. You definitely see that here. If you allow it to happen, if you're not really straight about it, if you don't tell people like, look, it's not cool, then it's going to happen.
All of them have been broken. All of them. You know, I haven't been as close to this as you have, but even I've seen on social media in that one Reds hangout, you know, quite a few people have come forward and said, hey, you'll get the money that you're owed. You'll get to see the books. And it never happens. And it's weird that you know, I wouldn't ever. Here's the thing: you and I are pretty good friends. I would never make that kind of a guarantee in your name.
These guys have 632 subscribers right now. I'm going to drop the link to them. Let's see if we can get them up to maybe as close to 700 as we can by the end of my show. Any of you guys want to help out? The link's in the chat.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
Mods, make sure you're dropping that link at least every 5 or so minutes for end time. I want to get these guys some subs. They're doing great. I like their ability to kind of research something out beforehand, understand it, and then bring it out like they did. I like that.
I wouldn't. No. I don't know. I can't. I don't control you. I can't guarantee that you'll do anything tomorrow.
Such a good point. So it's like T-Jump. You know, T-Jump making those points and then acting like he did. This is why so many people don't like T-Jump, just so everybody knows.
You know,
well,
because of his actions.
I'm sorry, but also I'll tell you this had a profound effect on me psychologically, and this is something
in time. Hey, what's up, guys? Let me give you a wrench over here. You guys did such a good job on this. I hope you don't mind me playing a little bit of I'm playing a little more than I expected because it's so good. A lot of us have subbed, says Michelle. Excellent. Good. Yeah, man. No, you guys did awesome. I'd love to hang out with you sometime and talk about this or something else. You guys did really good.
I always go back to,
in my opinion, it's awesome.
Bill Cosby. Mm-hmm. Bill Cosby. Yeah. The truth is, sometimes no matter how much you think you know somebody, they can be completely different.
That's a good point, too.
So you just have to be careful speaking for someone if you haven't seen it yourself.
And shit, dude, he was going around slipping Mickeys. I'm just playing. He was, though, but still. It's a good point.
And everything that we've said here, by the way.
At least we could say if you go hang out at Bill Cosby's house, take your own refreshments. I think that's what we'd say there.
And everything that we've discussed here, we have the sources for. We're going to be linking the sources for. It is something where we have personally verified the claims made. And I think this is interesting. I want to get onto this because okay, I want to quickly, because I didn't quite finish the Medi-Cal thing. Well, I maybe finished the Medi-Cal thing. The fact of the matter on the Medi-Cal
I do want to know, though, is there any legal way to...
Anthony said just sub. Thank you, Anthony. Excellent.
I don't know the Medi-Cal system that well. Even though
646 says Dodge already? You got to be kidding me. Excellent. Yeah, keep dropping that link, guys.
would Medi-Cal consider how much he owns as far as the value of his property, which the show was his property at the time? Would that be considered against him getting Medi-Cal benefits? Because if it, I'm just curious.
No, that's a good question. It's just the income. It's the income.
Okay.
That's what it is.
So if I owned a really nice house, but I was poor enough to get Medi-Cal benefits, I could still get benefits.
Yes, definitely you could. I don't know about Medi-Cal as in California, but I know that they don't take. It's not like you have to turn in everything you own and all that. No, that's definitely
Medi-Cal benefits.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
Well, there you go.
That way, if you have some like badass job and you lose it and you're screwed, you can go file and get the benefits and go see a doctor, or whatever case may be. Because you're still going to own a house. You're not going to have to sell your house to go to the doctor. You can go get the Medi-Cal. Yeah.
Now, if you were drawing from the house as an investment property or something like that.
Hey, Kiri, good to see you. No, definitely. But show Uni says Donut. Thanks, dude. No, hey, Chessie. Hey, Lisa. No, thank you guys. Hey, Kristen. Good to see you guys tonight.
If we're drawing from it, fine. But again, the reason is, and this is the other thing, and this happened during the housing crisis, 2007. People said, well, I'm a millionaire because I have a house that's worth $1 million. No, not until you cash out the house. Just because it's worth $1 million today doesn't mean it's worth $1 million tomorrow, which is why you don't get hit.
It could be worth nothing tomorrow. Kyle Steele in Style. Uni, perhaps you're interested in becoming a business partner on your channel. Promise I'll pay special attention to the bookkeeping. Email me after this. Kyle Steele in Style. I might just team up with you. I'm just playing, of course. But anyway, so this is the perfect time for me to say to you guys, I know I haven't been streaming a lot over here. I've been getting a lot of stuff done. We're going to be on D-Live after this because I need to update OBS Studio because this weekend we're going to be streaming our asses off. We're going to be streaming a lot. And I got a lot of really good topics to hit. I'll go over them at the end of this because I don't want to take any time away from this. I want to say to end time, I ended up playing a lot. I started at maybe 30 minutes in or something, so I haven't played the full thing. I planned on playing less of this, but it's so good, dude. And, of course, this is End Time. Now, I found them today through Steve McRae's channel, and, I was just waking up or whenever it was, and I said, you know what, I'm going to cast this to the television while I do some stuff, and I just couldn't walk away from the screen, and I got that really well-researched, perfect recounting of all these things, but they went back to the beginning. If you weren't here earlier, they went back to the beginning of the Non Seq show and discussed a lot of the points that are brought up in relation to everything, and then went all the way up to pretty much now. So I was like, look, I've talked about this on my channel. I'd love to go and do what they did, but they did it so good, I can't do it better. So I decided to show you guys what they've done, and then also ask you to let them know that we appreciate it by subscribing to their channel and checking out their content. And, because if they can do this good of a job recounting all of this, I do think that, they probably have some other good stuff too. What we got going on here? Member, we got Bull joined my channel. Well, I'm a fan of yours, dude. I watched you on the Non Seq, produced Non Seq for a while, so I'm a little flattered, bro. Thank you, my dude. All right, back to it. Oh, by the way, the join button right next to the sub button, it's how we basically keep doing our show, so think about hitting it. And here we go, right back to it, because I want to get at least 10 more minutes, and then you're not going to see any more of it here. So if you want to see the rest of their excellent breakdown, you're going to have to go to their channel. Link in the About section. Moderators are dropping the link. The channel End Time, the show End Time.
With it, and you don't get dinged with it, and it doesn't count until you cash it out. There are certain situations when people talk about the net value of what's his name, owner of Facebook.
Oh, Zuckerbot.
Bull says, I love your stuff. Maybe we can team up on it. Bull, bro, I'm down, dude. I'm down. I'll get a hold of you. I plan on doing the tutorials after the weekend. I'd love to have you help, man. I'd love it. It'd be great. No, that'd be so cool, dude. Awesome. So you heard it from Bull. Me and him are going to work on some tutorials. Dude, that's exciting, dude. Thank you.
When people talk about his net worth, the truth is, first of all, he's not taxed on that net worth. He's taxed on the money he pulls out of it. And one reason is because that net worth only exists on paper. If that net worth is all stock, first of all, the second he starts...
that's why my channel's not worth anything. I don't know. All I do with the money I make from this channel is pay the internet bill. It takes a lot of equipment. It's really the only thing you need to do a good show is equipment. So sometimes people do get like really nice broadcasting software because they don't have a nice PC, or vice versa. Maybe they don't know how to use it. But either way, yeah, definitely can be expensive if you pay. But the tutorials I'm doing is going to be aimed at showing you how to stream how I do for free. So you could basically take what I'm doing, change all the graphics, change the setup, and do it your way, and it won't cost you anything other than an internet connection and a PC. So that's what the tutorials will be about.
To sell it, the value of the stock goes down.
Griffith actually has a great question.
Yes.
She wants to know, is there any legal precedence for a YouTube breakup like this?
A legal precedence.
That does lead me to, so my father was a criminal defense attorney, and I was reasonably close in on a lot of what was going on, and I teach law. I'm very interested in law for this reason. I also did mock trials that I taught, and often criminal cases, stuff like that. So I've got a pretty good familiarity both with the how it works in principle and also what happens in the reality. There has to be a number of precedents, I would assume, for this happening on YouTube in the past. But I will say, a lot of people act like this is a big, huge thing and nobody's ever seen it before and everybody's shocked. This happens all the time. This happens every day. They don't have a contract. Something breaks up and this happens.
It does happen a lot. That's what I'm trying to say. And typically you don't have a video. Somebody stands up and they say on Twitter, my channel... we stopped working together. Now my channel, I can't get into my channel. I did a video called The Mystery of the Hacked YouTube Channel. And it gets a lot of views now. That video, The Mystery of the Hacked YouTube Channel, talks about how a guy goes to log into his account and it's gone. And bloody, bloody, bloody. You'd have to watch the video, but it happens a lot. He is definitely right.
Now, lawyers run by what are called fact patterns. And this is an interesting thing. If a woman is found dead in the United States, right off the bat, there is a 50%, there's a 50% chance
that
for a
it's someone
significant
close.
other murdered her. That's it. That's just.
Joey says, I'm on Medicaid myself. This notion that I owned a business, I can just leave the money in and not have it count as an asset is not true. Yeah, like I said, I'm sure different. He did mention how different states are different. Maybe a business matters, but I think he's specifically talking about Medi-Cal, which is California, I think, right? I could be wrong there. Like I said, I'm also speaking off the top of my head, generalizing things. So I'm sure, what I would do is send him an email and ask him if he can elaborate on that. In their comments section, I noticed on their channel, people corrected them on a couple things, and we'll look at it in a minute. And they were saying, make sure you let us know. We'll correct anything. And that's why I basically was willing to recommend the channel. I recommend channels if they do a good video, but also if they're willing, if they are recounting something. And I like looking at neutral channels or channels that can at least take a step back. So that was another reason why I wanted to recommend this channel to people. He was willing to, both of them are willing to update this whole story, as evident in their comments. I'll show it to you in a minute, though, either way. But I'd let him know. He's a really open dude about this stuff, as from what I've seen so far. So I'm sure he'll elaborate with what he meant.
Statistics, that's what it is. Now, that can't be used as evidence against the other person. You can't sit there and convict the other person, or, again, it's not evidence. But it's...
In Time says that is correct. Medi-Cal is Cali. Okay, thanks, man. Joey D, it is Cali, but it's just the name they use. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So you're saying it's the same everywhere? Well, hey, In Time's in the stream right now with you. You could probably ask. And, like I said, shoot an email or something. I'm sure if there was something misrepresented, they'll definitely update it. How much of that applies to the situation, though? I don't think it does. I think that's the greater point. The greater point is, whatever Steve did, even if Steve was robbing banks, even if Steve was defrauding somebody, that's not going to stop the books for damn sure. But it's also not going to stop. Now, that was the thing used by the other side. We have to wait to give Steve the money. We have to have the lawyer make sure that we can pay him, knowing that he might have defrauded something. That's not how paying someone works. It's not how somebody owning a business works. You're not in trouble if your business partner does something wrong and you let him get his money. You get me? So it's kind of a moot point here. I think if it was something that wasn't, it would be a little more worth stressing, but I definitely think if it was an inaccuracy, they'll be willing to update it.
Shows a fact pattern, and it tells you where to look. If you ignore it, and if you don't start with that person, you're being negligent in your duty to try to follow this up. 50% of the time, a woman's been murdered by her. So
In Time responded. He said, Medi-Cal is the state insurance which is normally given to state employees, which has also been extended to cover people under certain programs. There you go, In Time. So that could be the explanation, Joey. Oh, I know, Joey. I know. Yeah. I don't think you're making a stink or anything. I just want to make sure I made that point. I'm with you, and I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad In Time responded, so you keep on bringing it up, bro. Don't stop around here. That's why we keep our chat moderated. We keep people here. We let them state their points, and that's why I appreciate it. So, yeah, no issue there, bro. Appreciate you.
Oh, it's one of those things where the statistic is useful for when you're thinking about the crime in and of itself. It is not useful as far as that individual crime at determining whether or not that actually happened. Yeah.
Well put. So, but in cases like this, and I've had a number of people talk about this fact pattern, because this kind of stuff happens all the time. The two things I've heard the most are as follows. First of all, that the money is probably gone. And that's because in 90 to 95%.
Oh, shoot. Where did Pigman go? Was Pigman talking about my viewer count? My viewer count, I don't typically put up on this side, as you can see. I'll keep it up if that's what Pigman was talking about. But, yeah, I usually only have my viewer count on the main one. When I stream on D Live, I have to turn it off because it'll just say 0 the whole time. But, you know. But I'll leave it up if you guys want it up for sure. I don't care.
Of cases like this where you have a breakup like this and the books aren't forthcoming right away. In fact, the books hadn't been seen the whole time. There's already been one dip, by the way. He didn't ask for permission before he took the 2,000. He notified Steve after he took the 2,000 for personal use. In most cases where there's been something like this, the money is gone. It's just gone. Usually what happened was one of the people just got kind of flush with the money, started spending on investing on the show. They thought it would go on forever. This is what happened with the housing crisis, actually. It's a natural human thing. You start to get money. You start to think things are always going to keep getting better and better and better, and you overspend, assuming you'll be able to make it up in the end. And then, boom, something changes, right, and you've got a very serious problem. That's a very common thing. And in cases like this, the first thing that you can expect is the money is probably gone. That's why that's the first thing I started looking for.
Okay, I got to interject. That is what I said day one when I covered this. I said my opinion is that the reason that the death of the Non Seq show was recorded like it was and things were happening like they were, and I made a lot of provisions back then. Let me go through a couple of them really fast. I'll do this super quick. So what I said is if that's true, Steve is a cool guy. And if Kyle did not let this drag out, and let's say that the money's gone, and I think you can find a clip of me saying this back at day one of this. I said, if he goes to Steve now, they were friends. I don't think he's going to flip on him or try to get him put in jail or even, get crazy. If the money's gone, I think Steve would be more even cool, just from my opinion. Now Steve can literally update what he thinks about this himself, but I always looked at it like Steve would say, oh, you spent all the money, okay, well we're going to keep doing the show, you're not going to kick me out, I'm going to have my point, and you're just going to let me have the revenue for an X amount of time until you can get me at least paid back to an extent. I figured that would be my most accurate assumption of what Steve would do. And that's why I said that in the beginning. A lot of people thought I was bullying Kyle. He's obviously spent the money, because that's what I've said the whole time. This not spending the money is really, him spending all the money is really the only logical thing that I can find that happened here, because it does explain the behaviors, not getting the lawyer involved. Why? The lawyer's going to stand up and say, there's no money. You spent all of his money. And then the lawyer's going to tell Steve that when Steve reaches out. So, yeah, that's why it seems like maybe a good reason for not having a lawyer, right? And why did he delay the books when it is illegal to delay the books? Well, and why is he arguing Steve's not a business partner when in the death of the Non Seq show, he states that he is and states that it's 50-50 and states that he owes him 50-50 up to the day he kicked him out, which means he's a business partner. All of this can be explained in that one swoop. I don't like that, and I do see how I could see how Kyle could do that. if he's being irresponsible, and if there was some other thing there, I could see how Kyle maybe took out some money for rent and then was like, well, dude, why am I broadcasting on a crappy computer? Well, dude, why am I broadcasting? Why don't I get some new clothes? I'm sitting here looking like UNIRock. You see what I'm saying, though? And how then he looks at the account and he's like, oh, shit, that bill finally went through. Oh, my God, I didn't realize I spent so much. Then what happens the next month when the rent comes and he's like, oh, my God, I got to make some money back, but I still need to pay my rent. I got laid off of my job. This could have contributed to it, although I'll be fast to state, it also could be he just said, screw Steve, I'm going to take all the money. You get me? There are many different reasons why it could happen. I hope that in the beginning, and I stated this, that he would go to Steve and level with him, and if the money was gone, and say, look, dude, the money's gone. Let's not play this charade. It'll end bad for me. Let's just play it like, let's do something to resolve it. So, yes, I hate saying it. I do, because I liked Kyle. That's why I hate saying it. If I didn't like Kyle back in the day or something, I wouldn't say this. But I do think that's what happened. I've always said if I'm wrong, I'll be willing to admit it. And when we find out the truth, I'll report it. So, either way. But I'll keep letting them talk, and I'll keep scanning the comments. I'm only going to let it go another 5 minutes or so. I've already stolen there almost the entire damn video. I went from like here to here, but they still have a lot in the beginning you should hear. They have a lot at the end you should hear. And I want to show you part of their intro because it's badass, but we'll keep going for just a few more minutes.
Again, not because it means he's guilty. It's not evidence he's guilty, but that's usually what's happening.
Bullinator says, I think that's exactly what happened. Yeah. I would like to, because I liked Kyle as a person, as a human being, and I liked his show, I would like to imagine that it was something that at first it was not an intentional thing to screw Steve over or something, and it just led to that point, and he's been put in that corner because even good people make bad mistakes. That's me trying to, in my head, stay the way I've always thought about Kyle and all that good stuff. So of course, everybody says this about me. They say, you're too nice, UNIRock. You're too forgiving, UNIRock. And if I am too nice or too forgiving, that's just me. That's just who I am. But that's where I like to say. That's where I default back to in my head. Now, I will say that it's gone on too far, and I've stopped having that kind of like forgiving look at this. I've been more getting to the point where it's like, you've screwed Steve so bad here that, you didn't go to him and level with him. You've continued this to where there is now a faction of trolls that go around literally trolling Steve like he's a criminal when there's no evidence of Steve being a criminal, and very much proven that there are criminal things happening from the other side. Those things allow me to walk away from that mindset that I have. For those of you that'll say, well, you didn't act like that last stream or the stream before about this. So, I'm willing to level with everyone on that. But, anyway. Zen rock. Yes, I'm very zen. Wah, 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 wah. I meditate actually in the corner wearing a thong at night. No, I don't, but they call me Zen rock. I'm just playing.
Happened in cases like this. So that's what I just said. Let's start looking for that and see if that's what's going on here. The other thing,
I'm the exact opposite of I do the exact opposite of meditate. I run around screaming, but you get what I said. You get the joke.
Is often there will be tax issues. Nobody knows whether the taxes have been paid on what Kyle has pulled out. Nobody knows anything about it because only.
That's a good point, though. And look at all the hell Steve's gotten. It's like Steve could have done something wrong with taxes or Medicare. Why, if you're gonna give Steve all that shit, the group of trolls that are going around doing that, why aren't you equally doing it publicly to Kyle? Have you demanded to see Kyle's proof of tax payment or something? Because you can't demand it from Steve. Demand that it's possible, Steve. There's a lot of criticisms to be had about that little troll group that's going around.
Only one person has seen the books, Kyle, and ostensibly his accountant. But there's no evidence he's got an accountant. And in my mind, some evidence he does not have a lawyer because
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Great point.
I can't fathom a lawyer behaving in this way.
So what happens?
Insane.
So what happens if?
Oh my God, dude! Exactly what I was thinking, man. That's why I'm recommending these guys. They always say exactly what the next point is that I'm thinking. I think Kyle is trying to cook the books with the delay, says Wade. Well, you got it, bro. That's me too. There, yeah. It's the one thing that literally explains all of this. It explains why he claims to have a lawyer, but as he just said, no lawyer would behave that way. Well, yeah, there you go. That explains it. It explains every facet of what's going on. Why is there a troll force going around saying this stuff to Steve? Because it fosters an idea in people that aren't educated to the full breadth of the situation. Kyle's side. That troll group, if you look at them as a group that's trying to propagandize people that aren't caught up to speed on all this, they're very effective in that point. That's why I consider them to be that. You get me? And that does play into also more evidence. That's something, definitely something that someone would do if that's the case, right?
It's discovered that there's all kinds of unpaid taxes and stuff like that. I mean, that's gonna dip into whatever Steve is capable of extracting out of this issue, right?
Well, if the money is in fact gone, that's gonna.
Well, yeah, that's gonna be the biggest problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can't get blood from a stone.
Hey, the shills. Thanks, my dude. Appreciate you.
So if that's the case,
depends on who you throw it at.
I like that one.
True.
If that's the case, he's not going to get anything. But that doesn't mean that this isn't worth the attempt for a wide variety of reasons, and it doesn't mean it's not worth going forward. So
very true. Very true. So what happens though? What's the end point if the money's gone and then there's no lawyer and there's no accountant and that's the reason for the behavior? It seems like Kyle gets screwed really bad in that situation, right? I don't think Steve can get screwed in that situation. He didn't have the money. He didn't mishandle it. He didn't not pay the stuff, right? Yeah.
So he's going to go forward. And again, nobody knows whether or not it's there. But if you look also on... The shill says we're big fans of you on our show. You'd be welcome to come on anytime. Well, that either means that you like me or you like to troll me. So either way, email me and we'll figure it out. I typically only refuse invitations if I'm getting trolled. So, hey, we'll figure it out. Email me. On Twitter, the vast majority of people who comment on this seem to have reached the conclusion that the money is probably gone. And, I'm one of the ones that's been a little more vocal about why I suspect that's the case. I don't know that that's the case, but I suspect it. I made most of the argument here. And I'll try not to... I like the $400 tag on his. Kyle's had a good sense of humor about it, and I appreciate people who've had a good sense of humor about
Me
it.
too.
A couple other people on the show have had a good sense of humor about it. I try to be fair and honest. There may be people who disagree that I've been succeeding. I don't know. I do my best. At any rate, I'm sorry. We can't get blood from a stone. I firmly believe that he does not have a lawyer. I firmly believe that.
I do too.
No lawyer would fail to reply.
No troll, I'll email you. I will be happy to read the email and respond. Give me a couple days. I might respond the minute I get it. Might take me a couple days, but either way, if I don't email back, please send me another. If I don't, it's just because it got skipped or something, and that has happened before. I'll do my best though to make sure we get it. So thanks, man.
On his behalf to a demand letter like that. No lawyer would let him publicly reply with such disdain to it. It doesn't help. No lawyer would allow the hemorrhaging. And somebody told me, well, why should Kyle...
Okay. I feel bad going too much further because, I want to give you an incentive to go watch the rest of it. And there's still 40 minutes left, and it's all good. It's all just as good as what you just saw. So please, this is End Time. Steve shared the video earlier today. Please read before watching. Before you do anything, please go subscribe to End Time. My mods are dropping the link. Thank you, Nick Souter, Ansgar Odinson, and Cheshire for making the video happen. Extremely thorough analysis with only very, very minimal point of fact issue, but too nominal to really be worried about here. I addressed them on the after show on Ansgar's channel. Make sure you sub to Ansgar's channel also. It's in Steve's About section. Let me go ahead and share the link to Ansgar's channel because that way you've got both. There's Ansgar's channel. Thank you to the entire community for the overwhelming support and your willingness to look objectively at the facts. I know Red's rhetoric, Bullinator, and myself are greatly appreciative to all those who have helped to get the facts out to try and find justice for myself and the fans of Non Seq. Pretty much consider anyone who can't see all this for what it is to be lost cause and probably just somebody who has their head so far up their blank that they can lick their spleen or their dude. That's why I love reading these. He's very descriptive. Or too dishonest to care about what is ethical and what is non-ethical or not ethical. Either way, those people are a vast minority. True. And mostly just trolls. That's also true. And it is their reputations that are suffering. And yeah, that's why I always say about trolls, guys. And I always try to give that out as a point to other creators. I get trolled probably more than every other creator put together, or at least the majority of them. It doesn't say anything about you. The facts are what say things about you and how you respond. Let people troll, let people lie, let people use their tactics. The community is smart, okay? People will say, if the community's smart, the people wouldn't support Kyle. Not true. There are smart people supporting Kyle, and they are being dishonest and trolling. You get me? I really hope GE, Godless Engineer, Casey, and Katie's reputations suffer greatly, as in my eyes, they have absolutely no credibility and no honor/ethics of any kind. They have willfully lied about me and others to this analysis here completely. They have lied about me and others, and this analysis here completely and utterly shows that they were wrong about everything. Thank you for watching the video. Please share it from End Times channel. The mirror is more merely to get the word out to more people, send traffic their way from a bigger platform. I agree, and I hope that also that's what we do too. Let me make sure I've got End Times. I did share End Times link. Yes, I did share their link. They're up to 655. They were at 630 something earlier. So if you're here now, please, and you haven't, I just dropped the link again, and my mods are going to drop the link. Subscribe to End Time, because that damn good video. But what I want to do, one, before we go off the air, I want to talk about something that he said here, and then I want to go into the comment sections for a second, and because that's what we do. We look at the comments, we see what the response is, we try to think on it a little bit on my show. Let's get that done so we can go offline, because I'd like to stream on YouTube again tonight. I might not, though. Either way, I'm going to be on DLive after this, dlive.tv/UNIRocktv. If you want to come over there. Actually, I'm not going to turn on all the stuff here because I'm going to be on DLive afterwards, and it'll just have to turn it off when I get there. So, yeah, come over to DLive when we're done if you want to talk to me, if you want to hang for a second, dlive.tv/UNIRocktv. The Autobot shares the links to my mixer and my DLive. But anyway, before we get off topic, let me go to this. I want to talk about Godless Engineer. I want to talk about some of the other things that he mentioned in this paragraph, and then I want to go to the comments. Let's go. All right, let's get this going here. Steve said this. Let me read it again really fast and talk about this. Then we'll go to the comment section there. I'll hit the live chat before we go. Then I'm going to head to DLive just so everybody knows what's up. He says, I pretty much consider anyone who can't see all of this for what it is to be a lost cause. Probably just somebody who has their head so far up their ass that they can lick their own spleen, or too dishonest to care about what's ethical and what's not ethical. So to speak to that point, I agree with him. Now, one thing that I try to show in these situations is how big a few people can look here on the internet, right? There are some very, let's say, dishonest or nefarious or deceitful ways to be able to, like, you know, use multiple accounts And usually the group that is doing those types of things are much louder than the group that goes in and leaves a comment sometimes, you know, or watches and gets disgusted with a certain part of what's going on, and they just kind of like take off, you know, or somebody in the live chat. The loudest people there are always those 10 or 5 or 15, depending on the situation, people, you know. If they get banned, they just have all these other accounts to log into with. So I do agree with him. Like I stated in my last video, there was some rumors going around about the Discord server, and that being why certain, I think I said this when I looked at T-Jump's, whatever he had, debate with the other guy who I thought was really, you know, cool about stuff there. One thing I'm going to upload is a video about that debate, because T-Jump is basically lying willingly. You know, there comes a certain point where I kind of showed it. So T-Jump was asked if he had watched the Death of the Non Sequitur show clip. Not in those exact words, but he was asked, and he admitted, yes, I've seen it. So if you've seen Kyle state the exact opposite, that would be different than you being in Discord and hearing Kyle saying some things that aren't true and you believing them. So that means that T-Jump also is willing to be dishonest to describe Steve or describe the situation, most likely because of something that happened in the past or some general thing that he had against Steve. And that says a lot. That says a lot for a content creator. If a content creator can't try to go in and look at evidence and be neutral and make up their mind, even if they hate somebody, what's the value in hearing their opinion when you know it's going to be cited? I guess the value is, hey, I'm going to hear a cited opinion there. And I always say that too. If somebody is willing to be cited in these things, you know, you already know what they're going to say. You already know that half the stuff they're talking is coming from a perspective of trying to defend somebody, not being honest and going to that right place. So that middle ground. And in my opinion, I think that's what does a lot of damage to Godless Engineer. So let me read the rest. Either way, those that are vast minority and just mostly trolls, and it's their reputations that are suffering. True, very true, and such a great point. And we saw that in the last month a lot with many different subjects, that, especially some that I'm trying to wrap up and move on from, right? You get a lot of tactics being used instead of trying to get the truth out and working towards an understanding. So very much exposes the people that are being dishonest and using those kind of tactics. It exposes them and what they're willing to do. I really hope G, KC, and Katie, I don't know who Katie is. I thought that Katie and KC were the same people, but I could be wrong. So anyway, I'm sure they're 3 different people, but GE's wife and another person, reputation suffer greatly. Steve hopes that their reputation suffer greatly, as in my eyes, they have been absolutely no credibility and no honor or ethics of any kind. So I do hate that part of this discussion, because I used to watch GE. There was a time when Team Skeptic, Cyman Dan, Godless Engineer, Conspiracy Cats, and all those guys kind of popped up. Some of them went on Non Sequitur. Some of them did other things, you know, and depending on their schedules or what they were doing. And Godless Engineer was somebody that I watched, and I was like, you know, a lot of my family members are from the South, and kind of act like he does something like, hey, heathens, how you doing? So, like, I actually hear an uncle say that to me a lot. Hey, heathen, how you doing? All my life. So anyway, there were reasons why I thought, oh, hey, okay, he's doing a pretty cool show. And, you know, what we saw, I think what a lot of people are seeing, though, is like the political thing gets in the way, in my opinion. I hate politics, and I know in time they talk politics, and I don't mind. And I know that Godless Engineer does politics now. I didn't know that in the beginning. But I do think that, you know, it's one thing that really messes everything up there. So what do I think about this? Let me go ahead and I want to make sure my point's made here. And I really hope GE's wife and this other person's reputation suffer greatly. In my eyes, they have absolutely no credibility and no honor ethics of any kind. Well, I do think that has happened. I think a lot of people that were supporters of Non-Sec were watching GE, were watching Team Skeptic, were watching Red's Rhetoric, and a lot of people were watching them who didn't watch Non Sequitur. I'm not saying that's all that was there. Though the boost from Non Sec was more of a force. You know, we've all been there. A lot of us that have been on the internet for like 3 or 4 or 5 years or something, or for a couple years, we've had a couple points in our YouTube careers where we go viral with a few things or multiple things, and your channel becomes more of a force. You know, and my main channel did that a bunch of times, and it was on the front page of YouTube many times. So my point is, once it becomes a force like that, you know, you could gain an audience literally from being on someone else's show. And that, I think that happened to some extent. Not fully, just to some extent. Is it wrong for Steve to wish that? No, I don't think so. Because I did, you know, I was a little shocked a couple times seeing how this Twitter battle happened between Red and GE, and I did a video on it because I wanted other people to see it. And defending the points that Kyle is saying without going and fact-checking it while doing videos about how you're going to criticize flat earthers or criticize Christians or criticize anyone, to me, why in the world are you that sided? Why is Kyle not getting fact-checked like the flat earther in this situation? Because this situation really favors the channel, because that channel helped you because of it being a little bit of a force. Do you get my drift? The benefits that you got from that channel, is that kind of stopping you from going in there? You worried? None of us knew this, by the way. None of us knew that this whole thing would get bigger, that it would blow up. We didn't know that the community would get behind Steve. I didn't. A lot of us saw that Death of the Non Seq clip was released. I went in immediately. It was like jumped down on the channel and just went and like, this is too crazy. But we didn't know that it was going to get massive support from a group of people out there. And it has, which is great. But also, it could have went the other way. I don't think a lot of people are realizing that too. We could be the hated minority in this, and then Kyle could have a great big group of people that were watching Non Seq like, Steve and his merry band of supporters suck, you know? That could have easily happened here. The right thing happened here. Why did that happen? I'm going to stress it again. Because that video was released. I've been through this for a long time here on YouTube. I've seen this kind of thing happen a million times. And I don't mean the channel and the guy getting locked out. What I mean is a base of people split around a channel or around something that had traction, right? And there was that entire possibility there. So that's why I think this is a really cool story. That also, on the same token, I don't think Godless Engineer knew that this was going to get so big. So I thought, this is how I looked at him battling with Red back then, and him taking these kind of like false points so hard out into the community. In his opinion, no one was going to see it. Not a lot of people would care. Hey, it's just Steve. Hey, what is Steve? Like, dude, Steve ran these other communities before he went to Non Seq. A lot of people know him for that. Just like a lot of people know me because I streamed a lot on my main channel and had a big channel back over there, and a lot of people that watched it. You know, that is forgotten. That's not realized now in this new state of YouTube, but it shows that it's still there, and it shows that you got to be careful, right? When I went into this whole debate thing I did in the last 2-3 weeks or whatever, I made sure to record the beginning of it. I recorded every email, I recorded everything, and I told everybody I was doing it through the whole thing, and it saved my ass on a few points too. I haven't put it out yet, but you definitely should watch when I put it out if you were interested in it. But anyway, I see what I'm not going to look down on Steve for desiring that outcome, because it's a deserved outcome. And I don't even think Godless Engineer would disagree. It's like, if he was wrong, if he could state it this way, if he was representing lies, and if he was representing things that are blatantly not true, like the flat earthers did that he criticized, then he has to agree that he would deserve a level of criticism there. Okay. And also, they have willfully lied about me and others in this, and this analysis here completely and utterly shows that they were wrong about everything, and I agree. That's why I played it too. Those are the thoughts that were popping in my mind as it went through, like, damn. Because it wasn't just the analysis, it was, I don't want to say his name wrong. If I do, dude, correct me in the chat, I'm sorry. Asgar came in with every point that I had in my head, you know, after other dude, I'm so sorry again, made the point, and that's what made this analysis so perfect. So, you know, wouldn't it be so nice if everybody out there who pretends like, hey, I'm just a neutral person, I'm not trolling for one side, if they go in and hear this analysis and they start thinking through, they're going to be like, damn, you know, maybe I was wrong about a few things in supporting one side or the other. You get what I'm saying there? Okay, so he says, thank you for watching the video and share it from End Times channel, and I'm asking my audience to do the same thing. We've been dropping the link. Okay. Last point I want to make, and I'll go to the live chat for a second before we go. Let's go to End Times channel, though. Yeah, sorry. So here we go. Internet hiccup. Sorry, guys, had a little bit of an internet hiccup there. I've got them coming back out to do some work Tuesday, so we'll make it through the weekend, I think. Okay, Harry Pothead says, at the end of the day, if Steve has done everything he has been accused of, if he is defrauding the state of California and the IRS, if he kicks dogs, if he runs over cats, Kyle has stolen from a person who he called his friend. Yes. Yes. And it was pinned by In Time. Great point. Right? Maybe that's the thing in the end that causes GE, Kyle, and the group of trolls that support that whole ideology that they had. Maybe that's that underlying thing that completely blasts this issue. It stops it from being hijacked. It stops this narrative from being created and perpetrated. Because, yeah, bring up whatever you want. Lie about whatever you want about Steve on that and that and that and that and that. Add in that he's kicking dogs. Add in that he runs over cats. Add in that he has a squirrel catapult in his backyard. Whatever you will. He's still, Kyle has stolen from a person that he called his friend. Yeah. Kyle is such a manipulative narcissist, makes me sick. The show they did last night on Susan Powell was so bad, I feel they owe the family an apology. They were flipping with their recital of facts and completely wrong on many aspects. I didn't see it. I'll have to watch it. Nick, sorry could not catch this live. It was 4 a.m. I have to correct you around the 48-minute. I distinctly remember that during one stream, both Steve and Kyle had agreed not to draw income from the show, and that for the first 12 months, they would let everything accrue in gross worth. I think Kyle probably started siphoning funds thereafter. I agree. It got a heart, and a lot of people gave it a thumbs up. Redirect from Steve in Australia. Won't promise to catch you guys live. I'm subbed and will be following you. So Bill Ludlow says, I am the one who booked Dr. Lawrence Cross Law. This is one of those things I saw that got corrected, and that's what I want to show you here. In Time responded, fair point, and if Nick said that Steve booked him, then Nick was in error. Our research did indeed already indicate that you were the one that booked him. However, our understanding was that Steve was the one who first got you on the show. The point was that Steve was the one, either directly or indirectly, who was getting access to these guests. It was through Steve's contacts in the community, including you, by which guests like this were booked. If that is in error, we'd certainly like to correct it. So In Time reads their comments. They add what you guys say, to what they're doing, and that's why I stated that earlier. Really well done. You earned a sub. And then in fairness, Kyle had to steal money to show secular people can be just as moral as religious ones, or maybe immoral, I think he meant to say, but I get the point. If he didn't mean to say it, I also get the point. It works both ways. Okay. Now, last thing I'm going to do, I want to play their intro because, my God, is it cool. And we'll go ahead and roll into, I'll hit the live chat very quickly after I play their intro. Guys, thanks for watching tonight. Still going to hit the live chat, so don't go anywhere yet. And we're going to be streaming this weekend. I haven't streamed as much. Was on D Live every night if I wasn't here. Getting videos done, getting certain topics rounded down, and the final summation videos done for some things, so I didn't stream as much. But we've got a lot of that work done now. I'll be streaming this weekend. Keep your eye open, and let's take a look at this really quick before we roll out. Ansgar, I love the hat, dude. I love the hat and the glasses. Steampunk. Looks steampunk. Love it. All right, you guys get the point. Pretty cool, right? So make sure you please subscribe over there to show them that we appreciate, the summation and the fact that we got to watch the video. And let's hit our live chat for a moment before we go. Okay, sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. All right, live chat time.